worldwide authority on cigars. Welcome to Cigar Emperor.
Okay, we're here with Justo from Eiora, right?
Justo Eiroa.
Justo Eiroa, yeah. And we want to talk today a little bit about why this great cigar family has chosen to specialize, especially on corojo. Having a corojo puro cigars, binder filler, wrapper, all using corojo. Maybe Justo, if you could talk a little bit about that, just so that we could understand the difficulty on this species and how good it is. I mean, I've smoked the cigars, I love them, and we'd just like to understand a little bit more.
Well, as a traditional Cuban family, my father was probably the oldest grower in Central America outside of Cuba. Actually, the first tobacco barn that existed or exists here in Central America, built during 1961, is here in our farm. And Cuban cigars had their heydays between 1947 and 61, before the Cuban embargo, because every single tobacco made in Cuba, which is trademark Havana Clear, was all the raw materials came from Cuba into Tampa. So when the embargo started, one of the things that happened, there was a rush to find land that would substitute that tobacco. And one of the things that happened with the Cuban brokers that were managing the sale of the leaf, Honduras was one of the pilot programs that was started in 1960 and 61. And my father was one of the fortunate persons to come down here in 62 and sort that pilot program that started. And one of the things that the Cuban tobacco required was land that had similar characteristics to what they had in Cuba, because the tobacco was no longer going to be available. And that's how the Cuban farming started developing here in Honduras, also in Nicaragua, and also the Dominican Republic.
I remember it was very interesting when you said that. I think it was your father. Maybe your father told me that you guys were the first Cuban seeds to be grown outside Cuba was here.
Absolutely, this is the
and
first
that's just
seed, yeah.
I mean, wow,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
And one of the things that you need to understand today, that the market of cigars, the largest producers of cigars in the world, is not Cuba. And the other things that all the other countries have is a great advantage, not only of technology, but great qualified workers in the biggest market, which is the United States. That unfortunately Cuban cigars are still banned in Cuba, but to compete in the U.S. market, you require quality, you require consistency, and they also are craving for flavors. And I think corojo, since we specialize on that, the corojo seed is the one that made the Cuban cigar era to become very famous. People know Cuban cigars because of the corojo seed. So that's why we specialized in corojo, and that's what made our previous brands one of the top selling brands in the country, which were later bought out by Davidoff. And now we still continue with the same seed, and with the Aladino brand. When you'll see the Aladino brand, you'll see in the Aladino brand two prominent dates, which is 1947 to 61, which is the golden era of Cuban tobacco. And Cuban tobacco was actually glorified because of the corojo seed.
So is it correct to say, like the Patagas 3D4s, the Hoyo Epicure No. 2s, the Monte Cristos, are they all using the corojo seed?
Well, I think they're using, today there might be some corojo seed, which is the original variety, but they're also, the Cuban government doing that in the 90s developed a hybrid, which was called Corojo 98, which was a cross of Habano and Corojo, that created a variety that was more resistant to blue mold, but doesn't have the qualities of flavor profile. It's still a fantastic, great tobacco, which we use, and a lot of other people use in the industry. But we still stick to the original seed, which yields less, but the flavor profile of that is incredible. It's second to none.
So those older, would it be correct to say those older Davidoff Cuban cigars, and
Not
years
Davidoff,
ago.
I'm talking about the
No, I know, but
yeah.
at one point Davidoff did have Cuban cigars. I mean, would that have been corojo seed? That was in what, the 1920s or 30s?
Most probably. I don't know that far back. I will not know the history, so I don't want to miss.
Sure.
Say anything that I don't know. So.
Yeah, but I mean, as you said, the Cuban cigars got famous for the flavor, and it was using the corojo seed.
Correct. Correct.
Right, right,
and
right,
that's and that is. But as you always grow, you always have a crop which is a monocrop in an area, then it gets susceptible to, and you keep on planting that same crop, you get susceptible to molds, you get to black shank and all that stuff, then you need to rotate. And that's what happened to Cuba. Many people are using the same crops, and then all of a sudden you get a plague, and it's hard to get it, so then you have to bring in new varieties, and then you need to do crossbreeds, and you do genetics and changes, and then you develop new seeds. But at the end of the day, what really made the Cuban cigars famous was the corojo, which we have been able to kind of perfectionate the way we grow it and become dominant in the industry with this.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for the insights, and I hope this will educate our viewers on, different ways, different cigars which they should try, and especially the Aladino, blend and brand of which Matthew here from speaking behind the scenes, behind the camera, with Cigar Emperor. Definitely a fantastic family, fantastic integrated plantation, amazing next level stuff, and look forward to working with you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Matthew. Thank you for visiting us.